This is genius.
This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
I've never seen so many mullets in my life.
No, it's just about feeling good.
You had more chins than a Chinese phone book for a while.
Man.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. I mean, he's right. He said, Goonies never say die. We're going.
We got this.
All right.
I was pulling the trigger, but the safety was on.
I just Randy Black Eagle.
That's it. Boom.
That's my.
That's how we roll. Just drop the mic and walk away.
Let's just say I've ranged a mule deer over there 47 yards right now.
Yeah.
If he's 47, I'm going to just put my 50 just a little bit under what I want to hit. I'm not going to hold my 40 high. I'm going to hold my 50 a little low. There's a whole difference between using a rangefinder to go, I just want to make sure I'm using my 60 or my 70, my 50 or my 40 or whatever.
Right.
Or I got a pin for that. I got an app for that. Yep, I got an app for that. And I'm not going to take the shot.
Yeah.
And I go home going,
let's see.
That's a 35-yard buck. What am I?
Yeah,
I'm worried about my rangefinder too much.
You know, I can remember reading an article in a magazine where they're like, is it ethical to take the shot without ranging it first? Use one because it's unfair.
If it's unethical to use
archery,
a rangefinder, then it's unethical to use a traditional bow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Man, let's start a pretty good pot right there, didn't
I don't. You know what? I've gotten.
All right, folks. Welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We're at the Western Hunt Expo. We've got Marc Smith with us, Muley Slayer, and Aron Snyder, my illustrious co-host. Yeah. And we're going to talk about mule deer a little bit today. We're doing Muley Slayer 2.0 at the Western Hunt Expo.
Yeah, last year was awesome. First time I'd done it with you guys, and
it was.
And it kind of hurled me into a new era of my life. Thank you. Appreciate it. And my brother over here from another mother. It was like people were like, that was. I read the comments. They liked it. I think they liked the dynamic. Me and
your
Aaron.
Selfie game, I must say, at an age of 48 has gotten super strong since
You're only
that
48?
podcast.
I'm 46.
Oh, there you go. I was taking
I'm a
guess.
whippersnapper, so hey man, I was pretty illiterate on that stuff for a while, and you know what, man, I don't.
You've gone varsity now.
Here's the deal, man. Let's talk about that for just a second.
You're fit now. I mean,
well, when you feel good, you look good. I share the only way I was ever going to get to where I wanted to be physically. Was to accountability.
Yeah.
When I was all those chins he talked about in the last one, I took my shirt off and took a picture and I exposed myself, and it was the weirdest thing I ever did. And man, a few people made fun of me, but since that almost 2 years ago, I've had so many people private message me and go, man, thank you for just sharing your journey and doing your thing. It inspired me to be better, do better. And the more you get that, the more you want to do that. So, I've tried to throttle back on the selfies of working out or anything to every other week or something.
I was making jokes about it today. We did that Cameron Haynes workout today, and I was like, look, man, if I don't take a picture of me lifting weights at the gym, then it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Selfies on the mountain, it didn't happen.
That's right, dude. That's right. So I wanted to ask you some questions. I had some dudes came up yesterday, two cool dudes that live here in Utah. They got this giant buck on camera. You were talking to him.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. And, you're thinking maybe something over 200 inches.
Yep.
218, 215, 210, whatever. So a big deer.
Yep.
To shoot it.
On public land. And they've got it on camera in velvet. And it's like mid-August, late August. So they went hard after that buck come muzzleloader season rifle, but couldn't find him.
Right.
So they're like, how do we kill this buck? And I asked this question to Kip Fowler yesterday. What is the best way when you find a deer like that in velvet, that time of year? What's the best way to get that deer?
To kill him, the best chance you have at shooting him is when you see him the first time. As soon as you see a deer like that, I've hunted a few really big deer in my hunting career, and I've been more so with my friends that I'm pretty happy shooting what I see. I shoot, right. I mean, I go out public land, see a nice buck, I get it done. I just kill it. But I've got guys that in their specific area where they live, like these guys, when they see a deer they want, and they're like, I'm committed to killing this deer. The experience I've seen over the years, the best way if you want to achieve that, if season's open, find a way to make it happen as soon as you see it, because you're pretty fortunate to see a deer like that anyway once. To see it 2 or 3 times is pretty unheard of, unless you're using some type of lure or baits, bringing it in. But even big bucks like that, you can't count on shooting a big mature buck off of something like that.
Yeah.
In the daylight hours pretty regularly. You just can't. And then August, September, you get mid-September, once he loses the velvet, he's going to the timber. He becomes a different – he's not
different
social.
Animal, not the same anymore.
Mule deer are social. Even big bucks will bachelor up in groups, safety in numbers.
Yeah.
They're just like they're eating, they're fattening up. They're not thinking about fighting. They're not thinking about does yet.
Not thinking about getting hunted, are they?
Not anything. And so once you put a little bit of hunting pressure on them, it changes them a little bit, and they'll move one pocket to another in another basin or something, but they're still generally right there. Come September 15th through the – I'm going to talk about Colorado because the Wasatch, I don't have enough experience to know how they do in October, but any high country deer, Wyoming, Colorado, wherever, after September, once the velvet's gone, they get fatter, they get gray cape, hard antlered. They go from bachelor groups to antisocial. They don't
really.
They're thinking one thing: I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger, because I got a lot of work to do come November, December. They're thinking I'm going to be. I don't want to be around other dudes. I don't want to be hanging out with my bros because I'm going to be fighting them. So they go solitary. And I think if that buck those guys showed you, they might shoot it on the gun hunt because they glassed it up across the canyon in the shadows, somehow shot it. But if they tried to hunt that buck on the extended, they're not going to shoot that buck right there in the month of October. That buck's not going to.
He's not going to be in
that bucks. You know why
that
bucks
area.
you know why bucks get real big and dark. And I just figured this out hunting East Texas. Big mature bucks of any species, anywhere they live, they don't get a lot of sunlight on them, and they're darker. And you hunt in Kansas. There's not any shade trees. Even big old mature bucks are a lot lighter colored. But you go down the south, and you go down into places that has big timber. Those deer are real dark colored, dark bodies. Well, they don't get a lot of bleached out, surfer blonde hairdos. Well, big mature. I don't know if that's answering what you asked, but that buck's not going to show himself in October in daylight hours very often,
unless he gets blown out by some guy out of dumb luck. And the dumb luck dude's in his escape route and shoots him.
Yep.
And I've seen that happen a few times.
Dude.
You get the guy on Instagram that has nothing for 5 years prior, nothing for 5 years after, but that 1 year he just shot a tank.
Yeah.
And it's
just luck.
Mike Eastman talked about me. He's like, a couple years, 3 years ago, he's like, almost if you ask those guys, somebody blew that deer out of an escape route or something like that, out of the timber, and that guy was in the right place at the right time and had the gun in his hand or the bow, and something happened and he shot it, but it had nothing to do with any skill, never seen it before. And one of the things I found too, with especially scouting in the high country, is once they go in the timber, if the larger amount of pressure is in the timber, those bucks that were up high in September drop down low after 15th or, when the velvet comes off. Now they're in the timber hiding. Well, then maybe elk hunters come in, first season rifle elk or whatever, and that buck's like, man, I don't like it down here anymore. You'll find them back up high.
Yep, that's true.
I talked to Robbie Denning about that. We'll find a buck we haven't seen for a month and a half in a blizzard in November at 11.5. Well, he's safe. He went back to safety, and there was some does up there. But,
sure.
Now he's back up high where he's not going to get, nothing likes getting shot at. So he's going to go where he's not getting shot.
Especially, I think, when they're older and tougher, and they're okay with getting up there. They'd rather be safe and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Than
they definitely want to be safe and less pressured, and they're not going to. Big mature bucks they're not going to put up with a lot of shenanigans.
So let's say you can get a tag for the early season, just over the counter archery. How would you go about getting that buck?
The guys that I know that are consistent here, number one, I thought they were trying to find deer in specific spots. They don't. They just go find the deer where they find the deer. All right. It's like I've always wanted to kill a buck over here. Where you can't. Don't kill a buck where you want to kill it. You got to kill a buck where he's at. So these guys that I know that are consistently killing big bucks on the Wasatch, they're finding bucks. but they're not. They don't lose
They're
their
not
focus.
married to that spot they saw.
They're married to that deer though, and they don't.
Yeah.
Man, you can't break their focus. They will not. They won't shoot a lesser buck. The guys that are killing the really big bucks aren't going up there saying, I'm waiting for, let's say they name one Houdini or Lopsided Lonnie or whatever they want to call him, right? Once they target that deer, they're going to hunt that deer the entire month of September, and they're going to hunt November, and they're going to hunt all of the extended. They're going to hunt everything they can to try to find that deer and shoot it. What they won't do is the first time a nice 160 or a 180 shows up in front of them, and not going to pop it. Where me, I could find a 225 buck up there that's 35 wide and double droppers and say, I want him. And then a nice heavy 175-inch, 28-inch wide 4-point pops up in the brush. He's dead. I'm shooting him. I
just like Aron Snyder.
I'd like it because I could go home from the Wasatch going, I didn't kill a buck and I really wanted to, or I could go home with a 175-inch buck in the back of my truck and just be whistling all the way back to Texas, and I do it every year. I'm happy with that. But the question is, how are you getting those bucks killed? You got to be committed to it. You got to say, that's the target. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to hunt this deer, and I'm not going to get distracted from that. And I don't know their tactics, but just watching them from afar, I know that's what they're doing.
You got to be committed to not going home with anything.
Yep, they are. Kip, I don't know him, but I know the way he is. Randy Ulmer, I know him.
Yeah,
they're fine with going home with nothing. It's all or nothing. They're not. The thing is, they're not okay going home without the one they want because they're used to getting it. Right? They're just they're another level. But anyway,
and I think, and I don't like the Wasatch. It's like Mortal Kombat hunting. There's just too many people, and physical ability is.
But the Wasatch is huge, though.
Yeah.
Is there that many people still?
It is huge.
Not compared to Colorado. It's not.
It's a big range, but there's nowhere too deep on the Wasatch.
Yeah.
There's nowhere too deep. There's nowhere you can't get to real quick. And that's something I'm going to talk about in my seminar today. Is I'm going to talk about a couple of things. You got to maneuver around the people. You got to hunt the people a little bit like you're hunting the deer. If you spot a nice buck up on a hill, and you want to go after him, don't just get him hard bedded and think you're the only one, because I promise you, no matter what, anywhere on the canyon, there's somebody watching that deer the same time you are.
Yeah, I learned that.
You're going to have to maneuver them and the buck.
I learned that in Colorado this year. I won't make that mistake again, but there was a nice buck, and 170s, and his fourth season rifle. I've said this story many times, but Aaron was like, we should shoot it. If you're going to shoot it, you need to shoot it. Yeah. And I'm like,
well, let me paint the whole picture.
Do you have to, can I just summarize it?
So it's bedded dead flat across from us at 284.
That's like 300.
Deader than fried chicken. It's sleeping. And I'm like, if you're going to kill it now. And he's like, I don't know if it's big enough. I'm like, hey, remember, the camera adds 10 inches. I'm like, we got it on film.
That's right.
But he wanted to shoot a bigger buck.
Right.
It took me 8 years to draw that tag.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to wait a long
8 years?
Yeah.
You spent 8 points, 7 or 8 points?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yes, I did.
In Colorado this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Fourth season.
So I'm like, okay, if you're going to kill it now. And he didn't want to shoot it, and I didn't want to be, because I'm known for like, come on.
I'm logical, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, it looks calm as can be. This whole hill, it doesn't matter if he walks 400 yards this way or that way, I can still shoot him.
Right.
And I'm like, let's finish glassing this whole area. He won't go anywhere. Where's he going to go?
Yeah.
Well, Aaron has hunted Colorado, and the Orange Army's out there.
Yes.
And I just kind of did space that. And then we did know there was a hunter up there, but I was like, he's not going to see my buck. Well, he didn't see my buck, but he saw a different one, and he rattled off.
Dude. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, what the hell is he shooting at? Boom, another one. And that buck's like,
the first
like,
two
get
or
on
three,
the gun, get on the gun.
He was like, it's okay, whatever. The fourth shot, though, he's like, I don't like this. The fifth shot, he's decided, we are done. Yeah. And the sixth shot just put icing on the cake. They left.
At that point, the way that I am, when I hear, I think I'm going to kill it, I'm going back to John. He's on the gun, getting it ready. I'm going back to Brian. Brian's screwing with the camera. I'm like, Brian, get on the gun. Get on the gun, Brian. Brian's
at that point, I'm thinking, I'm not killing it if it's not on camera.
Yeah.
And there was just hard to get it on camera and then also shoot it in that. I could have shot it. I think I could have shot it before it got out of the canyon.
And you could not have shot it on the camera.
But I couldn't have got it on the camera. So I was like, that 10 inches, I needed that camera 10 inches or I wasn't going to do it.
And I didn't care that you didn't shoot it. What I thought was funny, I'm like, why didn't you shoot it when it was asleep over here in front of us? Like, what the heck? But that was a bad
But you know what?
season
At the
anyway.
same time, I was okay with that. Anytime you're okay with,
Sure.
I mean, I was okay with not shooting that buck.
Yeah, I would say another 15 inches on it, it probably would have been, you probably would have killed it without thinking
and
about
I look
it.
back on it now after looking at a lot of mule deer. I still haven't looked at a ton, but after the season was over, we did a lot of scouting and we looked at a lot of deer. Now, looking back at it in the video I have of the deer, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
What was I
that's
thinking?
always-
This deer is beautiful, just gigantic. The only reason it didn't score higher was because it was like a 3x3, but the back tines, the very back ones, only forked, so it was 4x4. But technically there was no split.
Yeah.
But he was like frame was massive.
He's a good buck, and I'm trying to not be the guy that convinces people to shoot stuff.
Sure.
So I'm trying to. I am that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'm trying not to be that guy. And I had promised these guys, not promised. We were in a unit that consistently produces, and I have been there. 185 to 200 plus inch deer. You see one a day like that.
Yeah.
We're on the second or third day. We haven't seen anything over 150. And when that one thing came out, I'm like, he might want to. John's beside me. I'm like, he may want to kill
and
that.
Aaron knew. Aaron's like, that's a shooter right there. But he didn't say that because he doesn't want to push me. Same thing when we're shooting bows. I've noticed that I'll be shooting arrows, and I'm not shooting right.
Yeah.
Aaron knows how to shoot better. But Aaron won't just step in and go, I see what you're doing, and if you did this, you'd shoot better.
Right.
It'll never, ever happen.
Right.
Not anymore. I used
If
to.
I
do that.
ask Aaron,
He'll
look
tell
at
you.
me, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Am I doing this? Then he'll do that. So he's out there on the hill. He's trying to be the guy that doesn't push me into shooting something. But I didn't have a good enough eye that it would have been better for me if Aaron was like, you want that deer. That's a good deer.
Well, and honestly, the year before, I wouldn't have had you. I wouldn't even have said anything. I would have been like, hey, there's a cool buck. Let's get some photos.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and you've hunted Colorado enough.
Yep.
Sometimes there's bad years.
Sometimes you got to shoot what the mountain throws at you, man.
Yeah.
And that was 2 or 3 days into it where I have been in there, and I was planning on seeing 10 to 15 deer like that one a day, and we hadn't. So when we saw that, I was like, yep, you might want to kill that one. And the other thing is, too, is like, I mean, you know, the more I'm on these big ticket hunts, which now I get to go on them a lot, you better make sure that is what they want when you're the one doing the convincing, right?
Yeah,
And,
right.
I mean, Brian's
It's
a
tough,
friend.
man, yeah.
Well, you ever see a guy? Well, you never killed a bear, have you? Black bear?
I killed one, yeah.
One, okay, but I've been on a bunch of hunts. A bear is can be the most depressing
Yeah.
thing for a guy to walk up on.
Mine was depressing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and then you're the guy saying shoot it, and because it's a 200-pound bear, which is really
a good-
not
not a bad bear.
not a bad bear.
Right.
And he walks up, he's like,
I shot a
Looks
dog.
like my dog, and I'm like, or
Yeah.
a guy has seen too much Eastman's television where Guy and Ike are cranking monsters, and I'm like, hey, that's a good buck. I'd take that buck. And it's 158-inch, 165-inch. They're expecting one of these hunting fool deer.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, dude, that deer over there wasn't on public land on a third season rifle tag. Like
Right,
that
right.
shit, they don't even just pop those things out
Yeah.
very often.
You didn't get that on a leftover tag.
No.
most likely, yeah.
No, So, but what do you got planned 17? Or what do you think you got planned?
2017, you know what I'm doing is I'm actually going to go hunt an elk again.
Oh, yeah?
Praise the Lord. Yeah, I'm going to go do my backcountry big elk hunt down in southern Colorado I like to do. I'm going to do that in September. And I think I'm going to hit some new terrain. I actually want to hunt a couple of different units in Utah, so I'm going to bank a point here this year on the general hunt, and I'm going to bank a Colorado point, and I'm going to do an Idaho mule deer hunt, over-the-counter hunt, actually.
Yeah.
I did some research. I talked to a guy that has consistently killed nice mature deer.
Yep.
And it's an over-the-counter. So my fuzzy September mule deer, velvety mule deer hunt this year, first time, is Idaho. And I just got through saying I don't even hunt Idaho, but I sent some money up to them. They're deer in rough shape. They're having a bad winter.
Yeah.
And I remember back in 07, 08 when the Gunnison got pounded. It was devastating for the deer herd. So I started watching some of the social media stuff about Idaho, and man, I just got a big heart for mule deer, so I sent them a check and just said feed them, and now I'm going to go hunt them. But I had no plan to. But I just told the guy the other day, I don't even hunt their deer, but I'm taking care. You need to do your part conservation wise,
Yeah.
At 26, you want to learn how to kill a deer. At 46, you want to kill them, but you still want to learn how to save them, right?
Yeah, you want to give back a little more.
It's a little different, yeah. So I'm going to go to Idaho, and I'm going to do that for my western hunting, Idaho deer hunt, and a Colorado elk hunt. So.
One, just because people ask me questions all the time, people know now that you and I used to shoot tournaments together.
Yep.
So on the tournament hunting aspect of things, what would you tell people? How important is 3D? Well, 3Ds, I guess, spots, whatever. How important is that for a hunter to do? Do you think it's very important, kind of important? Where would you put tournament archery at?
When I was at the height of when I was my best at shooting 3Ds, is at the heyday when I was killing my best animals, and when I went and did my average on range of shots, there was a lot of 70-plus shots.
Yeah.
When you're standing on the line, you're shooting against, even our local pros in Colorado. When I'm shooting against you, or I'm shooting against Bill Pellegrino and some of those other guys, you got to have your A game on. And we determined those tournaments by 112 ring, right?
Yeah.
And now for the big guys, you're talking, it's the difference between $50,000 and going home and eating ramen noodles, right?
Yeah.
Well,
nothing wrong with ramen.
No, but the answer, when I was shooting and I actually winning tournaments, shooting my best, I was killing better animals and I was shooting further. It all goes hand in hand. I didn't shoot a lot of 3Ds the last few years. I've shot enough to just keep my rhythm going, range, and I take a rangefinder. I want to shoot 3Ds again. I wish every organization had a professional pin class. Short stabilizer, hunting bow, use your rangefinder, and go shoot. Because I don't want to go shoot the K50 at ASA because, man, now everybody's shooting it that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Shooting arrows that big around with scopes and all that. But I want a pin class that pays me to go shoot 3Ds with my rangefinder. And then I would get back into it heavily.
Yeah.
And that would make me super, super deadly.
We got into a bit of not an altercation, but a conversation because we shot at a tournament, and I don't shoot them anymore, really.
Yeah.
I had a 35-pound pack on and an 85-pound hunting bow shooting a 580-grain arrow.
Yeah.
Shot a 412. Guy beat me by 3 and just was beaking me. And I'm like, dude, I was like, one, you got a scope. I entered the pin. I'm a pin shooter. And what my point was like, dude, how's the ankle, Frank? He fell off the mountain this morning. My point was what you're talking about is I understand the pro class, right? I understand that.
Sure.
But if you take a guy and put a pack on him for one, and then hunting, screw-in points, 420, you shoot lighter arrows, I think, but 420-plus grain arrow on a hunting bow, and things change, right? You're just not few pin shooters can shoot the same as they can with a scope on, you know what I mean? A few guys can, but I think that I wouldn't mind if there was a class for a 35-pound day pack hunting bow class.
Sure.
Because, that's what you're wearing when you hunt. Yeah, you drop them on a stalk, but you know what I mean. I agree with you 100%.
I've seen Aron just uncanny, call out yardages as we're walking along and and I'm pulling out the rangefinder and he's getting it right to within 1 or 2 yards. And that makes a difference. And I, I've never really been good at 35 yards, 45 yards, 55 yards,
it.
57
you have to practice
yards.
that more than you practice. When you're in the game, when you're in the 3D game, you spend, say, okay, I'm going to have a 2 hours practice session today. You're going to spend an hour and 45 minutes practicing judging yardage and 15 minutes shooting.
Yeah.
The shooting's shooting, man.
And I find that, knowing where to put the pin on a 37-yard shot, because I don't have a 37-yard pin.
Right.
Right?
Practice, man.
Dude, and so I have noticed that some things I took for granted because I didn't practice them. It's like I'll just hold high or I'll hold low. Well, it's holding high and how low. How much do you hold high and low? And when you're between 55 and 60, how much high? And I realize the split between the two is between a 50 and a 60 is my 55, right? Well, it's taken some practice, and I'm not fast. And Aron can draw, put it there with unconscious effort and just tag it.
There's different ways of doing that too when you're gapping like that, pin gapping.
Yeah.
Is what I used to do is try to hold on a spot. Like let's just say I've ranged a mule deer over there 47 yards right now.
Yes.
I range him 47, I draw back, and I anchor, and I look between my 40 and 50-yard pins.
Yes.
You've got to focus on one. So the first number in your head is 47, so you go to your 40-yard pin. But you're at the farther spectrum of the 40-yard mark,
Right.
You're going to shoot low. If you're thinking 40-yard pin and you're putting your 40-yard pin and trying to hold high, what I do, this is just me talking for me. If he's 47, I'm going to just put my 50 just a little bit under what I want to hit. I'm not going to hold my 40 high. I'm going to hold my 50 a little low. And then I shoot a hinge too. When I hunt,
He does the same thing I do.
That's what you do too?
Yeah,
Why?
don't think because you're going to
Speed.
shoot low. If you're thinking 40 and your red pin's 40 and you're thinking 40 and you're putting your 40, you're going to shoot low.
Just tracking too, and I mean, you and I came up saying we're going to say the same shit with all this probably, but elk comes out, deer comes out, even walking at 50. Immediately, 40 yards is not on my mind. My 50 is on that bottom of that thing's heart if he's 47 or on that thing's heart, and I'm not even looking at a 40-yard pin, and it's
You're
quicker.
just looking at what you want to hit.
And I don't even – literally I have passed by the 40-yard like I have an enemy. I just keep going, right, and to go to the 50 – because you'll shoot low. I mean, there's no way. And then your brain, you'll forget it's 47, especially if it's a big animal. I've seen guys do it. They're looking at that 40, and that 40 was high. Pretty soon that 40's hanging on the lungs, and pretty soon that 40
is in the dirt.
Yeah, and you're missing.
You're shaving brisket hairs, Bubba.
Yep.
You're shaving brisket hairs, and that's
You're crying all the way
painful.
home.
Yeah, that's something you have to. You know what helped me with that? Shooting field tournaments with my pins.
Yeah.
Man, when I started going to the Air Force Academy there in the spring, shooting that's a great course, by the way. A lot of good up and downs.
Yeah.
But you shoot the field course, having to know where to hold on that spot with fixed pins. And God rest him, the late Kurt Geist was probably the best I've ever met in my life. That guy was the best field shooter with pins I have ever met. Just super deadly.
Well,
but he helped me on that even when I went back to trying with my pins, and he taught me some stuff, And man, it's a way different game shooting pins on a field course than a scope.
Yeah.
And you're canting a little bit with a scope, but with pins, you're really gapping.
I can think back to a handful of great animals that I did not kill because I needed to range it first. Whereas if I had just properly, judged the yardage and then executed that shot, I'd had the shot.
Yeah,
it's a luxury I've had on few occasions actually to use the rangefinder in that moment, especially when you're hunting thick country and it's just boom, there it is, Yeah. Whereas if you're stalking it, you can sneak up, range it, get a little closer, range it, right? But when it's just like there it is, you see each other about the same time. You've got 5 seconds. Aron can do that, and I can think back to a couple of nice elk that I didn't capitalize on because I had to check.
Yeah.
Getting that skill though takes practice. This year I shot that wolf in Idaho.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you did good on that one.
Congratulations, by the way, on that. That's
Thanks,
huge.
man.
That's
huge.
Yeah.
And that one was Aron. I had gone to the 3D range a number of times with Aron and was just judging yardage for a couple of weeks before we got there, and then during season, a couple times we were just walking around judging yardage, and I was just refusing to pull out the rangefinder,
Yeah.
And when that wolf came out, I'm like, I did some math. I guess it was tunneled. I guess the yardage, like Aron taught me. I subtracted a few yards, and I'm like, that's 35 yards. And that's a small target. I hit the wolf. Felt really good about that.
Pinwheeled on elevation.
Yeah.
Perfect elevation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's it was empowering to have that.
Yeah. Have you heard a lot of the guys, Pete Shepley, Randy Ulmer, a lot of old school guys, man, little things you hear in your mind all your life. Perfect practice makes perfect. Shooting your bow, practicing shooting your bow is not going to shoot your 3D target or your bag target at 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards. Man, once I set my pins up, every year you get a new bow, you get a new sight, you go out to the range, and you shoot 2 or 3 days long enough to know that my yardages are dialed in perfect, right? Mm-hmm. I no longer am I standing at my bag pounding at a certain yardage ever. I'm walking and judging, and I like to just, even if I go to a range that's got a marked range, I'll get off the stakes and walk up a back. I usually go on a Wednesday when nobody's around, and I'll just, even whether it's a field target a hunter round on a field target or
Yeah.
3Ds, I'm gonna walk up, judge the target, shoot it for what I thought it was, because I never want to lose that skill, because I've been that guy that said, I'm not going to shoot this buck. I didn't get him on my rangefinder, so I'm not going to take the shot.
Yeah.
And I go home going,
Let's see.
that's a 35-yard buck. What am I?
Yeah,
I'm worried about my rangefinder too much.
Years ago, though, and Aaron, you can speak to this. I mean, I can remember reading an article in a magazine where they're like, is it ethical to take the shot without ranging it first? 30, 40, 50-yard buck, right? And so I'm sitting there going, man, I don't want to wound it. And I have this tool that allows me to know precisely, and then there's no excuse for missing the shot. Then you hang out with a guy shooting a stick bow and a recurve, and it's just, we're just throwing baseballs, dude. We're winging it.
Yeah.
We're slingshotting it. There is no rangefinder often. And even if they had it, they don't have a pin to put it on. And I'm like, whoa. That's a whole another level of, is that ethical or not, right? And I started to apply that to over the years, to be like, you know what? Rangefinders, nobody used them in the past.
Yeah.
And you can argue the other side of it is it ethical to use one because it's unfair?
If it's unethical to use
archery,
a rangefinder, then it's unethical to use a traditional bow.
Right. Yes.
Period.
Yeah. Right.
End of that story. Indians, ethics. Let's talk about ethics for a second. I'm a conservationist.
Yes.
And I'm pretty ethical. Indians, Native Americans, 300 years ago, were they walking around with a bow and arrow going, I'm kind of concerned about that deer's feelings and what people are going to think of. That's my dinner. And if me and you were going to run this thing into a tree, knock him out, bludgeon him to death with a rock, and then stick some arrows in him, and he looks like he got hit by a Mack truck, but at the end of the day, my meat's in the truck.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we got to do. It's a little primal. I get it. But if you have the ability to make the shot and you feel good about it, you can sleep with it, you need to do it. But as far as a rangefinder being unethical or not using it being unethical, man, let's start a pretty good pot right there, didn't I?
I don't. You know what? I've gotten. I've calmed down on it more because for me, I don't. If you want to kill shit with an atlatl and pink underwear, if that's what makes you happy, I hope your atlatl, you're proficient with it. Just don't judge me for what I've chosen to do. And you know how much I shoot, and I know how much you shoot, and how much we train and shoot. When guys, especially that haven't put the time to learn, which I have to pee soon, so I'm going to have to cut this a little bit short, but to tune a bow, right? You're a bowsmith as well. You know how to tune a bow. You know how to build an arrow. You know how to do everything.
Right.
You've donated your entire life to that.
Yes.
And you've got in your entire life now, and I mean, I know how fit you were before. Like me, you gained a little weight, and then you donating now after 40, back to fitness. And then I've got some dude that's, questionably 80 to 120 pounds overweight, hasn't learned to tune his bow, picked up a bow, telling me I'm unethical. I'm like, who's unethical, Chuckles?
Yeah.
Me, because I've donated my life to this, or you, because you read a book and it told you to not do this, right?
Well, back to the whole thing. We do get comments online. People say something like, you should go and do a hunt like the Native Americans did, never use bait, and you should never trap and things like that. And it's like, those guys did whatever they needed to kill an animal to eat it. And we can go to the store, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No.
I want to get it in the wild.
Yep.
And that means I got to take a shot I'm not taking a shot that doesn't have a high percentage chance of doing it, or why take it? But I'm not taking a 100% shot.
Right.
I mean, if I can make that shot 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, do you take it? Because
I do.
If I truly know, when I look down there and I go,
that's 70% chance that he's
right
going
there.
down.
Range him. Oh, that one down my sight a little bit.
Yeah.
If I'm already there, I'm shooting.
Yeah.
I'm already there. I'm already there, man. I'm already on the blood trail, right? And it's been a long time. I think it's just because of age. How long we've been doing it. I'm not there anymore. I don't. The question of am I about to do something that's ethical or not never is my equation. Because I look and I go, here's the deal. If a buck's in my kill range, in my effective shooting range, let's say, I'm never ranging him to see how far he is. I'm just ranging to make sure I'm using the right pin. It's been a long time since I ranged a deer and went, I got a pin for that.
I need to get closer.
Yeah, I got a pin. I already got as close as I'm comfortable. I'm just doing this so I know what pin to use, right? And then so I was talking to a young man this morning, And we had that same conversation. He went, hey, wow, I got a pin for that. There's a whole difference between using a rangefinder to go, I just want to make sure I'm using my 60 or my 70, my 50 or my 40 or whatever.
Right.
Or I got a pin for that. I got an app for that. Yep, funny. I got an app for that. Oh, I'm going to use my other arrow because it's 10 grains lighter or whatever. So I don't care if you do that. I'm just telling you, once I get it dialed in and I'm ready to roll. So
that's cool.
That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, this
Thanks.
needs to be a short podcast because I got a seminar coming up.
Yeah,
He's got to urinate.
It's bad.
But I wanted the 2.0, and I hope you air this because a lot of the guys that did a lot for my brand, for me last year having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
A whole new following because of you guys that are super cool guys out there. I like them a lot. So.
It's awesome.
Thanks for having me, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
Awesome,
Thanks
man.
for being on.
All right, thank you.
Stay gritty. In 1907, only 41,000 elk remained in North America. And in 1950, only 12,000 pronghorn remained. Today, there are more than 1 million elk and 1.1 million pronghorn. Why? Because hunting is conservation. In 1937, hunters actually requested an 11% tax on guns, ammo, bows, and arrows to help fund conservation. That tax so far raised more than $8 billion for wildlife conservation. Altogether, hunters pay more than $1.6 billion a year for conservation programs. No one gives more. It's obvious that hunters care about animals, and yet we actively hunt and kill them. Many people cannot understand this dichotomy. How can we both care about animals and also kill them? It's a question that I challenge all of you to consider. Here is an excerpt from the Gritty Bowmen film, Alberta, with a quote from Fred Bear that describes my feelings on this subject. The first shot on this buck was fatal, and it cleanly pierced his vitals, but he didn't go down. I hate to see animals suffer, and when possible, I will always shoot them again if I have the opportunity. I have tremendous respect for this buck and his will to survive. He didn't go down easy, and I have mixed emotions about that. At times like this, I am reminded of a quote by Fred Bear, which somewhat describes my thoughts on this matter. Quote, I have always tempered my killing with respect for the game pursued. I see the animal not only as a target, but as a living creature with more freedom than I will ever have. I take that life if I can, with regret as well as joy, and with the sure knowledge that nature's way of fang and claw and starvation are a far crueler fate than I bestow. I do not hunt for the joy of killing, but for the joy of living, and the inexpressible pleasure of mingling my life, however briefly, with that of a wild creature that I respect, admire, and value. We can argue as much as we like, but the fact is, hunting is man's oldest and most successful try at life. Every human being is alive today because our ancestors hunted. So it's a relatively new phenomenon for people to regard hunting as a cruel and frivolous activity that has no worth outside of personal gratification for the hunter. The funny thing is, hunting has increased my appreciation for wild animals and wild places, not decreased it. And as I watch society lose its ties to wildlife and conservation, I feel my bond with nature grow ever stronger in direct correlation to my time spent hunting. I understand now more than ever that hunting is the greatest hope for creating the next generation of true conservationists. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting in the outdoors. Our wild animals and wild places depend on it. We thank Kifaru, Mountain Ops, Hoyt, Vortex, Phelps Game Calls, Black Eagle Arrows, and Crispy Boots for supporting the Gritty Bowmen. We love these companies and the people behind them. They truly make fantastic products. Please support them however you can. As always, good luck on your hunts and stay gritty.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.